Hey guys, welcome back. And in this video, we're going to be doing something that I wasn't sure I was ever going to get into, but I have. And that is Premium Vanguard. I will admit, I have, after playing this deck a little bit with a friend of mine and testing and getting back into the Premium mindset, or I guess I should say getting back to the old set of the old way we used to play Vanguard with the G Zone and the G Guardians and all that. It is nice. It feels kind of like a little bit nostalgic, but so it is really cool. So I am glad that I finally pulled the trigger and decided to play Premium. It is something that I'll probably get a lot of enjoyment out of. But anyway, guys, I think it's no surprise. This is going to be a Kagero Premium deck profile. It has been the clan that I've covered the most in my time on YouTube, and it's the clan that I play the most of. Anybody who knows me knows I have a big red binder, and literally it's nothing but Kagero stuff. And literally some of my teammates say I have an obsession with buying and hoarding Kagero stuff, and they would be right. But anyway, guys, this deck profile, it's going to be there's going to be a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of reason for the cards that I picked. This is just the first, this is like my first choice of it. I do have a second deck list that I'm working on that plays much more defensively and reactive to what the opponent does. But this right here is probably the best version of the deck that I can come up with in my own head. I know that's a scary thought. But anyway, let's jump straight into this. I'll explain my choices, and we'll hopefully you guys will enjoy it. So here we go. So obviously this is Kagero, so we're Lizard Soldier Conroe is our starter, and as we know, this is pretty much the same. It's used the same way that it's used in Standard. If you when you ride it, draw a card. If you go second, you get to add your Quick Shield token to your hand, and of course, we have the beautiful Kagero Quick Shield token to go with it. So for triggers, we're playing we're basically playing the 8 premium crits. The one that basically is the Heart Thump clones. Yeah, like you remember the triggers, the triggers from way back when that said, hey, if your Vanguard's this and it attacks, place this in the soul, it gains 5k and draw a card. Pretty much it's the same thing now, except it's clan specified, and it gives 10,000 power, and it has a GB1 restriction. So, that's nice. It gives your Vanguard an extra boost when you need it. And then for the other premium crit, it's basically a stride fodder, so you can ditch it to pay for the cost for stride, because when you pitch it, it gets +3 to its grade. So 4 draw PGs, so nothing, pretty self-explanatory there. Draw triggers, point perfect guards, it's kind of important, and of course 4 heals, playing all standard triggers, so we get the most out of our trigger checks. Grade 1s, we're playing 4 copies of Flame of Hope Eremo. This kind of applies to the same logic that I used when I was doing my Draconic Overlord, the Cross Standard deck profile. Eremo is still played at 4 because we really just don't have another option. Eremo is a solid option, being an 11k booster at all times to either the Vanguard or a Rear Guard, and if a Rear Guard is retired on our opponent's field during our turn, we get to countercharge 1 and draw 1, so it gives us a little bit of filtering, resource replenishment. It's just a very good overall card for a clan that spends our counterblasts for wiping the field. Then we play 4 copies of one of my favorite grade 1s from back in the day, and that is Lizard General Conroe. Lizard General Conroe, whenever it's placed on the rear guard, you may search your deck for any card with Overlord in its name and add it to your hand, and then discard 1 card from your hand. So it basically guarantees you whatever Overlord you want as your grade 3 ride, which is very good. His other skill is if he's on the rear guard, you can sacrifice him, and it gives your Vanguard with Overlord in its name a skill. If it were to attack that turn, yeah, I was making sure it says it doesn't have to attack a Vanguard. I didn't think it did, but yeah. If you sacrifice it, you can give your Overlord Vanguard the skill of, if it were to attack that turn, you may countercharge too. So since we play a lot of units that restand in our G zone, this can essentially allow us to countercharge a grand total of 4 cards. So it is an amazing card that should be at least at 3 in this deck, or any Kagero deck for that matter, simply because it's the best resource replenishing card that we have access to. Conroe is just an amazing card since the day he came out, and he is still one of the best cards in our clan. Next, we'll play 3 copies of Lizard Soldier Bellog. This is one of my favorite cards from back when this card originally came out. Nobody played it, and I honestly don't know why. I use this card because it's insane. And then all of a sudden, when kind of hand devastation Kagero variants started running around, people started playing this, and they were singing this card's praise, and I was the guy in the corner that went, I thought everybody hated this card, and I was sitting with like 16 copies of this card at my locals, and they're like, hey Jay, we need that card, you got it? And I'm like, yep, you can't have any of them. So, literally, guys, I probably have 15 to 16 copies of this card, and I'm not getting rid of any of them. And he's one of the best defensive cards. If you don't know what he does, he's GV1, so you have to have, at least 1 card face up in your G zone to activate his skill. When this unit is placed as a Guardian in your Guardian circle, choose one of your Vanguards until the end of that battle it gets. At the end of the battle that this unit was attacked, if the attack did not hit during that battle, choose one of your opponent's rearguards that are at rest and retire it. So, say your opponent swings at you, and you just need a 5k shield to guard. You guard with Bellog, and then after that attack, you can use Bellog's skill that he gave to your Vanguard to pop the card that attacked him. So it guarantees to open up a slot on your opponent's board. It can mess with their combos, especially if they're playing something like Aqua Force, or they're playing something like Great Nature, and you force it off the board before they're done with it. This card is just devastating, and I've actually considered cutting 1 copy of Eremo to play 4 of him. He is that good, because there's so many variants now that just have rear guards in decks, whether it be Pale Moon, Aqua Force, Great Nature, where their rear guards are exceedingly devastating, and this guy just gives you the freedom to just say, I've had enough of you, bye. And it doesn't cost you any counterblast, it doesn't cost you any soul blast, it just costs you having 1 card face up in your G zone, which is that's not even a cost, because you're going to stride. So this guy will be live eventually. I'm seriously probably going to put him at 4 eventually, because he is that good. If you play Kagero and you have never played him before, just try him, please. And the last grade one we play is we play 2 copies of Red Dive Griffin. This card is a good card to have, just because literally when you sit him behind your Vanguard, he makes your opponent think. Because it's literally a ticking time bomb for you to blow their shield completely out of the Guardian circle and fuck them up. And so anyway, his ability: once per turn, when your opponent's Guardian is placed during that battle, if this unit boosted your Vanguard, Soul Blast 1, choose one of those Guardians, retire it, and at the end of that battle, retire this unit. So for the cost of 1 Soul Blast and giving up your Griffin at the end of the battle, if your opponent were to lay a perfect guard in front of you, you can blow it off the field and your attack would go through. So sometimes literally just having him there will make them go, I have to let this go because I don't have another option. Because if I lay my perfect guard, he's just going to blow it away anyway, so what's the point? It forces them to rethink their guarding strategies, and sometimes if you can get your opponent literally to just second guess themselves, that's all you need. So he's a good 2 of, in my opinion.
Grade 2s, we play 4 copies of Berserk Dragon because he is the best Grade 2 ride for Kagero just in general. Placed on Vanguard or Rearguard, Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, retire one of your opponent's Rearguards. If he happens to be sitting in the Vanguard circle, you get to draw a card. So just really good to start building up the early hand advantage. And then if he's on the Rearguard, if you have more Rearguards than your opponent does, which most of the time you will because this is Kagero, he swings for 13. So he's just a good card. Next, we play 4 copies of Dragonic Neoflame. This probably gives away a little bit of this deck. Dragonic Neoflame, pretty simple. Whenever your Dragonic Overlord the Great attacks, you may Counterblast 2. It gets plus 5k and plus 1 critical until the end of that battle. So just really good. A really good rearguard to lay in the early game because, as you know, when you place the Great in the Vanguard circle, you can just call this straight from the drop zone, so there's really no downside to placing him on the field because if your opponent does kill him, you can just bring him right back. And then we play 3 copies of Dragon Full Armored Buster. If your opponent has no rearguards, he gets 3,000 power at all times. So if your opponent has no rearguards, he's 13. So that's pretty good. And then his other skill is Vanguard or Rearguard. When he's placed, you may Soul Blast 2 and retire one of your opponent's cards. And then you get to look at the top 7 cards of your deck for an Overlord and add it to your hand. I really don't know what else to make this. There's a couple other options. The reason he's in here, in Premium especially, you cannot miss your Grade 3 ride. So that's why he's here. If you have to use him, he's there. If not, you can use him just to pop a problematic rearguard later if you need to. There are a couple options. He would not be in a defensive build, but he is a very good card. And there are other variants and card options that I want to try in this eventually. But he is good for what he does. He helps just give you a extra... because usually you're going to see at least one Grade 3, and if you get the one that you don't necessarily want, you can just use Conroe to fetch the one you want. So, but he's a good card. Then, for the Grade 3 that's obvious, we play 4 copies of Dragonic Overlord the Great. And I finally got my pretty SVRs that I've been wanting. So Dragonic Overlord the Great, as we just said, when he is placed on the Vanguard circle, you can Superior Call Dragonic Neoflame from your drop zone back to the field. Get your Force marker. Usually it's going to be Force 2. At the end of the battle, and then his other skill is at the end of the battle that this unit attacked, if your soul has a Grade 3 in it, you can Counterblast 1 and discard 2 cards from your hand, stand this unit and one of your Dragonic Neoflames, and they get drive -1 until end of turn. So that's there. You're not really going to use that skill. He's really in here just for the Force marker and for something else. I thought when I was originally putting this deck together, I kind of just did it in my own mind. I didn't research other builds of Premium Kagero decks, and I thought I came up with something pretty cool, but then I realized other people probably figured this out too, and I was correct. So I'm pretty sure you can guess where this is headed, especially with restanding rear guards and being able to ride this over. You can use Dragonic Neoflame with Conroe to basically reuse that skill where your Vanguard is going to be swinging for 3 crits every single time when you stride, which is pretty devastating if your opponent is not holding on to a perfect guard. Next, we play 3 copies of Dragonic Overlord the Cross. This is the original version of the Cross. If you're wondering what that is on there, if you look, I'm trying to make sure my camera focuses. These 3 copies of the Cross are signed by the president of the United States Division of Bushiroad. These were the copies of the Cross that I used when my teammates Christian and Sam qualified for nationals in Team League. So these especially are very important to me. So that's why they're in my premium deck. Plus, when I see the three of them, it reminds me of that good time that we had together. And then for the last two grade 3s, we're playing 2 copies of the new version of Dragonic Overlord The End to Legion with the Cross. So when they Legion, you'll have a 24k Vanguard. And what's really cool is you'll basically just be able to attack your opponent 3 times, and it gets pretty insane. I'm not going to go into the full ruling. If you don't know how these 2 cards interact with each other, look it up, but it's actually pretty insane. Because pretty much, since you would get full advantage of the end in Legion, because he's not the Legion Master, he's the mate. So you can pretty much abuse the end without none of the downside, which is kind of hilarious. So anyway, that is our grade 3s. Now, the G-Zone, something that we have not done on this channel in quite a while. So, let's take a look at our Kagero Premium G-Zone. For the first unit, we're playing 3 copies of Flare General Dumjid Valor. Flare General Dumjid Valor, let's be honest, this card is absolutely insane. When I read this card, because when I decided to build this deck profile, I had no knowledge of what premium cards were out there as far as stride units for Kagero. So when I came across this thing, my jaw hit the floor. And he is absolutely busted. But he literally does nothing but represent everything Kagero is. So skills, he has Blaze, which, just for fun, Blaze is activated. Your Vanguard is considered to be in a blazing state whenever you have more rear guards on the field than your opponent. You're playing Kagero. That's going to be 98% of the time anyway, so that's not that hard. His skill is, when placed, you can counterblast 1, turn a card face up from your G-Zone, and then choose one of your opponent's rear guards and retire it. And then this unit gets plus 15,000 power until end of turn for each Sentinel in your drop zone. So, if we have just 2 perfect guards chilling in our drop zone because we've already used them, this guy immediately gains an additional 30,000 power on top of the boost that he already gets from the stride, because generally you're going to stride him on top of the great. So 15 plus 13, that's 28. Then if he were to gain, say, 30 on top of that, he's sitting at 58,000 power, which is absolutely insane. So he can gain a huge advantage from having Sentinels in your drop zone, which is really nice. Pay attention, if your draw triggers go into your damage zone and then you heal, make sure you always heal your draw triggers and put them in your drop zone so they can help power up your Dumjid Valor, who is by far the best stride unit in the deck. And then his final skill, once per turn, when your opponent uses a Sentinel or a G-Guardian to guard against Dumjid Valor's attack, if this unit is blazing, stand this unit and it gets -1 drive. And the thing that really drives me up a wall here, that isn't part of the cost of the Sentinel skill. So this skill literally is for free. And all it takes is your opponent using a Sentinel or a G-Guardian to stand him up. And your opponent, your Vanguard has to be blazing. That's the only part of this, if you even really want to call that a cost. But he, immediately when he strides, you're going to get to pop something. So it's going to be even easier for you to get more rear guards on the field than your opponent, even if you have to call something literally just to fill up a spot so it's not tied. And your opponent is going to have to eventually use their perfect guards and G-Guardians to block these attacks because they want to live. So he is going to get his restand off, which is insane. This guy is really... It's very rare that someone lives through more than one of these. It's because you go force 2, and when you swing with your stride unit, you're going to get triple drive. So you can just, you can get extra crits on top of that. And then the Neoflame trick, because remember, whenever you stride on top of a unit, the G unit also keeps the name. So he's treated as both Dumjid Valor and Dragonic Overlord the Great. So Neoflame can give his skill to Dumjid Valor. So technically on both swings, if you use Conroe, and you sacrifice him beforehand, that will allow you to countercharge 2 when Dumjid Valor attacks. You can pay for Neoflame's skill both times, and then they countercharge right back, so you technically pay nothing. So you can essentially swing with your G unit with triple drive that gains an insane amount of power, depending on how many Sentinels are in your drop zone, with 3 critical. And you're going to get 2 swings eventually. Because the first time, your opponent might honestly just let it go. And and honestly, that's okay too, guys, because if you're already swinging for 3 crits, your opponent, by the time you stride, is already going to be at anywhere from 2 to 3 damage. So they might have to guard it anyway, because if they say no guard and they're at 2 damage, all you need to do is pull 1 more crit for a 4 critical attack, and then they could possibly lose. So Dumjid Valor just puts in an insane amount of pressure from the start. He's an amazing card, and he's pretty much the reason that I ended up deciding to building this, honestly. For the rest of our G units, we're playing 3 copies of Flare Arm Ziegenberg, one of my favorites from way back when. This was the first G unit also that introduced Blaze, I believe. So obviously he has the Vanguard ability, Blaze, which we already went over that. Second skill, once per turn, you can Soul Blast 1, choose a face-down card in your G-zone with the same name as this card, and flip it face-up. Choose one of your opponent's rear guards and retire it. So it gives you the ability to force one of your opponent's rear guards off the field if you're not in a blazing state at that moment, so that's nice. And then his other skill is a Generation Break 3 skill, meaning you have to have at least 3 cards face-up in your G-zone total. Counterblast 1. Choose the same number of cards from your hand equal to the number of rear guards your opponent has and discards them. At the end of the battle that this unit attacked and it is blazing, you may pay the cost. If you do, stand this unit and it gets drive -2. So, in a perfect world, if your opponent has no rear guards, you don't have to discard anything. But your opponent is usually going to have at least something. This card, Pale Moon, especially hates seeing, especially since all their rear guards will then run to the soul. But he's basically just another restanding Vanguard that we can abuse. He's nowhere near as good as Dumjid Valor, but he is still a very good unit. 2 copies of Supreme Heavenly Emperor Dragon Dragonic Overlord the Purge. Damn, that sucks writing on a deck list, let me tell you. So, obviously, most people know this guy by now, but just for funsies, choose a face-down card from your G-zone and turn it face-up. And then choose a card with Overlord and its card name from your hand and place it into your soul. If the number of cards in your opponent's damage zone is 4 or less, choose one of your opponent's Vanguards and deal 1 damage to it. During that damage check, all trigger effects are nullified, so if your opponent's at 4, you can use this to push them to 5. And put them, 1 damage from death. And then his Generation Break 3 skill is, this unit has the same number of drive checks as the number of cards that are in your opponent's damage zone. So basically, if your opponent is at 5 damage, this son of a beast gains 5 drive checks, and he has Quintet drive. So he can really, brings the pressure. But to be honest, as good as this card is, you're probably not going to use him, because Dumjid Valor, if you go into him the first time and your opponent barely survives, your chances are you're just going to go straight back to Dumjid Valor to finish your opponent off. So then we have 1 copy of Supreme Heavenly Emperor Dragon, Zanburst Dragon. This is the Stride unit that came out in the most recent premium collection. So his skill's real simple. Vanguard once a turn a card in your G zone face up. Retire all of your opponent's rear guards, and all of your grade 3 or greater units get plus 10k until end of turn. So he's really in here if you're playing something like Royal Paladin or Aqua Force or Neo Nectar or something that is very oriented around building a specific board state. You can just go straight to this and go fuck your entire board and basically wipe it clean, and they have to start over from scratch. So he's in here literally just to give us that option to go wipe our opponent's board. One copy of Seabreeze. Seabreeze is that card that you really wish you didn't have to play, but the times that you need it, it always seems are the times that you decided to not put it in there. And then you're like, damn, I wish I had Seabreeze. So Seabreeze is in here literally to get GB1 active. So if we need to, because the only card in our main deck that is GB1 is Belog. So Seabreeze is here if our opponent decides to be cute and say, I'm not going to ride to grade 3, so you can't stride on me. You can go into Seabreeze on them and at least get your GB1 active so you can use Belog. So he's there for those games. If your opponent doesn't play that game with you, you can just as easily flip this face up for one of your costs. And then into our G Guardians, we play a grand total of 6. 3 of them we play is Flamewing, Steel Beast, Denial Griffin. This card I don't need to explain. Denial Griffin, when you place him in the Guardian Circle, counterblast 1 and retire the unit that is attacking. So pretty much this is used to say fuck your rear guard. Because if your opponent's rear guard is attacking for 200,000 power, you just place this in the Guardian Circle, counterblast 1, and just pop it, and you don't even have to match up to their number. It's just, he's insane. So he's here literally just to get rid of our opponent's attacking rear guards that we just don't want to deal with. One copy of Supreme Heavenly Emperor Dragon, Defeat Flare Dragon. So this is really good against Paladins, Neo Nectar, Aqua Force. It's pretty much good against anything that has a reliance on their units in the back row. So as I'm sure you know, his ability is when he's placed, counterblast 1, choose 2 grade 3 or greater flame dragons from your drop zone and put them on the bottom of your deck in any order. When this unit's placed during the battle that your Vanguard with Overlord in its card name is attacked by your opponent's Vanguard, you may pay the cost. If you do, retire all of your opponent's rear guards in their back row. So if you're playing against Royal Paladin and they want to do that cute little Flogel trick, you can just be like, fuck you and your pink dogs, and just get them off the board and you don't have to worry about them anymore. It can devastate Neo Nectar at the right time. It can screw over Aqua Force at the right time. He's literally just here, and if your opponent knows of this card, which they're going to be aware of its existence, so they won't necessarily put those units in the back row until they're ready to commit to the fact that either A, they don't think you have a heal trigger to summon him, or they're literally going for broke because that's their only choice. Make sure you get 2 grade 3 grade 3s in your drop zone as soon as possible, just so this thing is live. And every grade 3 that we play in this deck is a Flame Dragon, so that's not hard to meet that requirement at all. We play 1 copy of Divine Dragon Knight, Abid Salam, I think so you say that. So he's here literally just if your opponent has, you know, a limited field, the bigger he gets. I need to find an SP copy of this. To be honest, I'm tired of playing this ugly rare version. So anyway, when this unit is placed in the Guardian Circle during the battle that your Vanguard was attacked by your opponent's Vanguard, you may counterblast 1. If you do, this unit gets plus 10,000 power until the end of that battle for each of your opponent's open rear guards. So if your opponent were to swing at you with just a Vanguard and have no rear guards, this thing would become a 65,000 point shield. So for every open rear guard slot your opponent has, he gets 10,000 points bigger. So he's a very good card. And then last but not least, we play one copy of Dark Element Dismal. Dismal's just in here. He's in here mainly to protect Neoflame. If you have Neoflame on the field from your previous turn, but you don't have another copy of the Great in your hand to ride a second time to fetch him back, so you can use this to protect him if you're planning on using him 2 turns in a row. That's why Dismal's in here. Plus, Dismal's just a good option, so he's here. So, anyway, guys, that is my Kagero Premium deck profile. So, like I said, this is my first choice draft of this deck. I do have a more defensive variant that is similar to the ARG deck list that's posted up here from like 3 years ago, or maybe it's even longer than that at this point. It's probably longer at this point, to be honest with you, but I don't remember. It's more similar to that list, and it plays much more defensively. Like I said, the only change in this deck that I'm considering is putting in a 4th copy of Bellog, because this card is insane. Maybe a change up to some of the G units, I don't know. But this deck as a whole, it works very well, because it literally just centers around getting a board state that swings completely huge and has restanding vanguards that get you multiple attacks and forces your opponent to play maybe more conservatively if they're not playing a deck that generates hand advantage. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this deck profile. It was a lot of fun to share with you guys. I hope you're all doing great and staying healthy wherever you may be. Please keep in mind, if you have not checked out the video that says we have a Telegram group now, you can go to that video and it will tell you how to find us. We have a small collection of people in there, and we're really we're having fun getting to know people, and we'd really like you to join us. Once we get 50 people in that group, we will be doing a giveaway of some kind, where I'll be giving away some kind of prize. I don't know what that is. Maybe I'll let you guys give me some ideas, but we need to get 50 people in that group before we do that. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Make sure you leave a like, comment, subscribe, thumbs up this video. Check out our Telegram group, please, and I will see you guys next time.